Good morning and welcome to Race Industry Now, the weekly webinar series from ePartrade, presented to you by ARP, Performance Plus Global Logistics, Peak, Ferrea Racing Components, and Fifth Third Bank Motorsport. I am Francisque Savignan, the founder and CEO of ePartrade, the racing industry, every minute, every day. This is episode 438, and this is the first episode of the 2024 season. We're going to be hosting Coiling technologies, and we will be talking springs. With me this morning are Judy King, the co-founder of ePartrade, and a wonderful host, Mr. Joe Castello. Judy.
Thank you, Francisque, and thank you everyone for joining. I feel like we just finished Race Industry Week, like last week, where we had 80 fabulous webinars. Joe was part of that. It was a great week, and here we are, and we're starting off the season. And what's special to announce today is that we have Ferrea Valves joining us, Ferrea Racing Components. So we're pleased to have them on board with us all year. And I'm pleased to have Richard joining us today. Hello, Richard.
Good morning.
Joe?
Happy Valentine's Day, actually, huh?
Well, thank you. Same to you. Joe?
Thank you very much, Judy and Francisque. Richard, good morning. Good morning, everybody out there on Race Industry Now, ePartrade. Super excited. Yes, Richard, this is how you and I get to spend the start of our Valentine's Day, but I am excited because we're talking about springs. And
Yes.
the racing industry, the automotive industry, beyond motorsport, if we quantified all the uses for springs, I think it would take us all day long. So I'm very excited to hear about CTI and how you guys got started and what you're looking to do, because we've got a vast audience out there of people within this industry that I think are going to be very interested in what you have to say. So first off, where did this all start?
Well, Coiling Technologies is a family-owned business, and Roger Holman is the proprietor and owner and president of the organization. One of the founding members of the company was Roger's father, George Holman. And George has been gone for some years now, but Roger's taken over the reins here for about 20 plus years, and he's really done a great job of taking this smaller company into what it is today. So we're really excited to be part of that. And it's exciting to be in an industry that is as varied as it is. And today we'll get an opportunity for you guys to see what Coiling Tech is all about.
Yes, and I'm very excited about it because it's something that is so common, whether we're thinking about engine components, suspension components, and well beyond. I'll be very honest with you, Richard. I don't know a whole lot about how it's made and what goes into it. And in a brief conversation you and I had earlier in the week, the different styles, cold coiling versus hot coiling. And it is my understanding that we're going to get up to speed in the next hour on all of that. But what I like to do early on, I know that people are watching because they're interested. Where are they going to go to improve or increase, information? Like at the end of the seminar, we'll give this information again, but let's give it right at the beginning. What is your point of contact for everybody that's going to learn about springs here today?
Well, our primary point of contact is typically the phone. We still have human beings answering our phones here. So that's kind of nice versus maybe some AI attendant. So Carla Smith will answer the phone a lot of times. Veronica, we have team members, so you'll get a smiling face on the other end. So that number is 713-849-4000. Obviously, during the presentation, there'll be some additional options, but if you don't want to speak to somebody on the phone, you can hit us up on coilingtech.com and chat with us that way. And there's always the simple email, sales@coilingtech.com. So there's a lot of ways for you to get a hold of us. And then during the presentation, you'll get a chance to see how we go about making and manufacturing the parts and what options you have when you need a custom spring made. So
exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah, like to get the contact information out there right away in case there's somebody is like, oh, totally interested and they want to just move forward. But I do understand, Richard, that we have a video or two along with a PowerPoint presentation
Yes.
today. So we're going to learn a whole lot about the process. But let's you tell me, should we jump right into this video and show everybody out there what you guys got going?
Yeah, let's do that as an intro. That'll give you a quick overview. This video is where we were featured on Bloomberg Television in The World's Greatest. So it's a nice recap. You'll get a chance to see Roger and speak about the company and what we do. So it's a quick one. So let's jump into it and check it out.
With the experience and expertise to design and engineer custom springs to meet their customers' specific requirements, the next company we visited provides a level of service that is unparalleled in the spring industry. To learn more, we visited Houston, Texas, and met with Coiling Technologies. Established in 1976, Coiling Technologies utilizes reliable, fast, and cost-effective technologies to design and engineer custom springs. They can also assist in choosing the best material for your specific application.
Hi, I'm Roger Holman. I own Coiling Technologies. We are a spring manufacturer located in Houston, Texas. Family business has been around since 1976. So our company supplies springs all over the world. We provide products in a wide range, all the way from small to very large bars. We service industries that would surprise most people. We cover almost every industry in the country. Springs are in everything from small to large, things you would never think of. It's really kind of amazing, the products that we supply to people.
Their core competence includes both large and small custom-made compression springs, disc springs, extension springs, torsion springs, and wave springs. Their quality management system is also ISO 9001:2015 certified by DNV, and their rejection rate is less than 1%.
Manufacture springs and supply springs on an OEM basis. We supply springs that are custom made, engineered in-house, designed. We provide programs to all of our customers that include Kanban, blanket orders. We provide a host of coatings and in-process adaptations that help enhance the cycle life and performance of our springs. And we provide these to, like I said, all industries in the United States.
Whether your requirements are for one piece or more than a million, Coiling Technologies has the capability to meet your needs.
So I would say the thing that makes us probably the greatest is our ability to cold coil bars up to 2.5 inch. We developed that process over the last 25 years, and cold coiling would mean we actually coil the bars when they're at room temperature versus putting them in a large batch oven and heating them up to 1500 degrees and then coiling them while they're hot. So we were required to develop specific equipment that could handle those stresses, and we were able to overcome those. In the end, we feel it provides a better product. It allows us to run a lot tighter tolerances, and allows us to batch heat treat all of our parts and get a lot better hardness ranges, and so they operate a lot better. We're currently the only company in the United States of America that can coil bars that large, and it really sets us apart from all of our competitors.
By manufacturing compression springs that meet your exact specifications and perform in the most demanding and challenging industrial applications, Coiling Technologies is truly one of the world's greatest.
Wow, Richard, that was tremendous. Seeing them formed, the old "a picture is worth 1,000 words." Well, a video like that's got to be worth hundreds of thousands of words. I know we're speaking to a motorsports and automotive-centric audience, but there are so many people involved in our passion of motorsports that are in industry, are in oil fields, that are in just so many different fields that could potentially be reliant upon this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes it quite unique is as a company, we're not just focused in one specific industry, let's say motorsports. We're focused in all varieties of industries. And that gives us an opportunity to maybe share that information and have that crossover from one industry to the next. I mean, many automotive OEMs are doing things now in concert with a lot of the motorsports industry. So you see that transition where they're taking from one sector right to the other sector. So you're either having a transition of information from what you've learned on the racetrack to the OEM and vice versa. You have the OEMs feeding right into the motorsports community and providing them the expertise that's necessary for them to be better. I have a motorsports background. This goes many, many years and decades that I was directly involved, but it was quite a bit different than what it is now. I mean, back then you didn't have a team of engineers. You didn't have all the direct support that was going on. You had maybe a transfer of some information, maybe aero, those kind of things, but now it's fully integrated and it's harmonious. And I've always said to many people that if you really want to understand what urgency is all about and understand how to get to that green flag on Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m., go work for a motorsports team, one of the best training areas for young engineers starting out. So it's a lot of fun and quite interesting. Makes it worthwhile to get up and get out of bed.
Well, you're the VP of sales and engineering, right? Like, talk about two different disciplines that you are covering, the engineering side and then the sales side, but they do ultimately merge together at some point. Now, I think that many in our audience out there watching this webinar, both live and in the future, are thinking, you guys aren't building springs for yourself to sell. These are like private label for different applications. And I understand that there are so many potential opportunities out there, and you have a PowerPoint where you can kind of go through the process a little bit of, and I'm interested to know how that flow works.
Sure, absolutely. We can start with that right away. But yeah, it totally makes sense with our industry because we sell a technical product. To have somebody with technical background, acumen, what have you, and crossover between the sales, because we're constantly selling to the customer a specific product, something unique, and like you said, custom-made springs to the customer's needs and specifications. But let me start with the PowerPoint. It might not be as fun and interesting as watching the Super Bowl, but maybe a little bit more informative than maybe watching Taylor Swift high-fiving her friends after a KC touchdown.
She worked her way into the ePart Trade seminar now too.
Hey, why not, right?
Hey, whatever. I feel bad for the Niners fans. I feel great for the Chiefs fans. As a Miami Dolphin fan, I'm just like destined to kick rocks.
That's it. That's it.
You go ahead, take it away, Richard.
All
and
right.
I guarantee if people are interested, if they're like me, they like to see how things work and certainly workflow and process. So take it away.
Okay, so essentially, we in the video you got a chance to see how some of the things were being produced, but mainly we do all sorts of springs, and that could be compression, extension, torsion, wave springs, metal stampings, wire forms. Today, I'm really gonna more or less want to focus on the compression spring side because that's the most common type that you'll see in a motorsports application. So I think that gives everybody an understanding, but we do far more than just a simple compression spring. We had a chance to touch on how the founding of the company was, like Roger said, 1976, Bruce Moss and George Holman were business partners and got this company off and started. The focus was primarily on the oil and gas sector and really producing parts that were a quick turnaround. So like if a rig was down, we would be able to make parts within a day or two or less. I mean, 24-hour service. Sometimes they would have a helicopter landing in their parking area to pick up parts and fly it off to the rig somewhere in the Gulf. So that's how the company was founded. And we're still focused on doing that quick turnaround. So we have lots of raw materials on hand. Everything's under one roof. We're 120,000 square foot facility now. We've expanded about 10,000 square feet this last fall. So that's exciting. So we have more space to produce more. We don't have any other outside locations outside the US. Everything's in-house. And then we have a sales office in Arizona. Right now we're hovering right around between 95 and 100 employees. That's a good fit for us right now with the current turnover that we have. So it's just making sure we've got the right people in place and doing all the things that are necessary to make the best parts in the world. So we're a lean management team. You were introduced to Roger. There's myself. We have Vicky. We have Talton. Talton's been a great asset. He's been with the team for years. He had a start here in his late teens, and he's been in the spring making industry for 40 plus years. So there's a lot of experience that's both here in the office and on the shop floor. We've got veterans that have been almost making springs for 40 years. And then we've got a lot of young guys that are going through the apprentice program and learning how to make springs themselves. So it's just a continuous revolving opportunity for somebody to really get into a great industry and learn the craft. Everybody needs a spring. You can't imagine what they all go into. It's quite amazing. One of the things that's core to us is being able to supply and support our customer. So we're not really selling widgets. We don't sell, necessarily like a catalog spring. We really truly sell a custom solution to our customers' needs. So we're out there ready to support them with whatever type of material, alloy. If it's engineering support, we do that. If it's something where you just submit a drawing, we'll process that as well. But we work hand in hand with our customers to be able to support them and ensure that they're going to get exactly what they need. One of the things, because we're a global supplier, we have customers throughout the globe. We work in various standards. So if you're in the U.S., you might be, utilizing a standard that's like ASTM A125, which is a standard coiling standard. It gets derived from a hot coiling actually, and we've adapted that a lot to our cold coiling technology. But there's DIN norms. Those are very common standards in Germany. And Germany has a thriving spring industry. So we have a background in that. So we work with customers in that space, in that arena. We work with customers in India. We work with customers in Asia. So we have to cross over. We have a full quality management system in place. We're ISO certified. So it's something that people can be rest assured that you're going to get a quality product. Some of the things that we do is we have a dedicated team, specifically people who are involved in various sectors to support our customers. So we have an individual like Troy who's responsible for supporting our Emerson account and so forth. We have Veronica who supports a lot of our smaller customers that are basically job shops and those kind of things. So each individual person within the group is able to help and support our customer base as they need to be. One of the things that we talked about is having that raw material on hand, ready to go, so we can make a spring quickly. It's not as common for us to make a spring within, let's say, days as such. Now we're doing higher volume, so it typically is in the weeks and maybe months, depending on the application. But every now and then, we still get a customer who has let's say, a plant that could be down potentially because a valve needs servicing or what have you. So we still have that opportunity to go and crank out a spring within 24 hours. You're going to pay for it. It's a situation where it's not going to be a cheap way to do it. But the bottom line, we're able to do that. And the industries have matured, so they have the inventory and stock in place to support that. But 20, 30 years ago, that was a very common theme for this company. So we still have that background. So if you need something quick, we're able to do it. One of the other things that's unique, and you can see in the bottom of the photo, you can see the large canisters. And I wish I had a guy standing next to those. Those were about 30 inches tall. Those spring in there have a preload force of 25,000 pounds approximately. And somebody had to push that spring down and then put that cap and then put that weld cap in place. So we do have some unique capabilities to make some unique applications where springs are utilized.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I touched on the material. I think that's our core. is having that material ready to go. We did extremely well during the what we would call the, let's say, post-COVID supply chain crisis. We never had anybody down. We never put anybody in a position where the line was down because we had the material available. I mean, just like everybody else, we were affected no matter what. But at the end of the day, it was that stock, that huge investment that Roger's willing to have in raw mat to be able to serve the customer as possible. So as an example, chrome silicon is a very common material utilized in suspension springs. And since we're really talking to the community in the motorsports area, that's a material that we'll kind of really focus on throughout the discussion today. But we have approximately 300,000 pounds of raw material in various sizes. So if you need a short run of springs, we've got you covered. So we run in 10th to 15 thousandths increments. And we have about 25 different sizes in high tensile chrome sil. So we're ready to serve your suspension spring needs in a very quick basis. Of course, we have a dearth of exotic materials. We're very well versed in producing springs out of Inconel, Elgiloy, Rene 41. I mean, all the super alloys you can name, Waspaloy, those kind of things we're very familiar with, obviously because of the various industries. And you'll see some of the things that we're involved with. And then, of course, our large bar coiling, we have all sorts of alloys to support that. So it could be a standard large actuator spring, or it could be a unique suspension application for like a heavy duty truck application. We were the company that was charged with supplying the US government, the military, with the up armor program for the Humvees. So we have a lot of experience in those areas. So here's some of the industries that we serve so you can kind of get an idea what that's all about. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at Coiling Tech, you're going to see a company that literally has springs at the bottom of the ocean floor to potentially out in space. And we know at some point they're going to be out in space because we have a program that's going to be for the mobility vehicles that are going to go on the lunar surface. So we have some exciting things we're working on. So just to give you an example, we made springs for Alvin, which is the deep sea submersible. They did an upgrade of that submersible back in 22. So there's some unique special nickel alloy springs on that vehicle. And that submersible can now go down to depths of over 21,000 feet. Whereas we have a project in conjunction with Goodyear, where at some point, we all know who Goodyear is and what they're all about. At some point, you're going to have vehicles that have to be on the lunar surface roving around. So we have some exotic material spring applications on that in the future. So we're really excited about that. So at the end of the day, we serve all these various industries, and that's what gives us all that unique approach for being able to solve your spring needs. So we pride ourselves on our large spring manufacturing, and I mean large springs. We make large springs. Here, our senior project engineer is standing inside one of the springs we made for customers that needed a large actuation. These go into actuators. So, and then he's holding an itty bitty spring just to give you some scale and reference to what our capabilities are. So it's not just large spring manufacturing. We can do everything kind of in between. Everybody kind of has a niche. So if you're looking for super high volume, lights out manufacturing for small itty bitty springs, that's not what CTI is all about. But we certainly have that capability and can support just about anybody with a spring need. So this gives you some idea of what type of coiling operations we have. So we have all CNC controlled equipment, but we have dual point coilers along with lathe coiling equipment to produce these large springs that you're seeing in this image and photograph. So the next area that we've had a fair amount of CapEx recently in the past 18 months, was just close to approaching the $3 million, is our large spring coiler. We now have a 25 millimeter coiler that's been online. Basically, it can coil up to 1 inch diameter material. That's a unique piece of equipment. We're really excited to have it because it gives us a lot of opportunity to just go outside. Instead of a simple lathe coil application, we now can make unique spring applications. So
Carla's out there. She says this is very awesome and very interesting. So
cool.
we're hooked.
So anyway, that kind of touches on the various aspects of our spring making capabilities. Whereas large bar that's on the lathe coiling, that you see in the lower right corner, and then in the upper left corner, you see the large 25 millimeter coiling machine. So primarily the difference between those two is in a lathe coiling machine, you typically have arbor. That's the typical like hot forming that you might see. So we converted that over to cold coiling technology. And then in the upper left corner, you see the big, large coiler that allows you to coil different spring configurations, whether you need special ends, pigtail ends, barrel shaped, hourglass, what have you. It gives you a tremendous degree of freedom on the coiling side. The next slide basically gives you an idea about what type of volume manufacturing we do for the suspension market to support that market, and it's low to medium volume. And what we mean by low and medium volume, you want 2 of these for prototypes, for development, we can do that for you, no problem. If you want, several 150 pieces, we could do that as well. Or if you need volume in the thousands for like niche vehicle programs that we're involved with. So just to name a few, we support the Z06 Corvette, and we manufacture the springs for those. So pretty exciting. And we run through the whole gambit, through that whole process of, starting the coiling process. We're taking that raw material, coiling it. We're immediately stress relieving it in this case. In other cases, when you saw some of that video where you saw that orange glow coming out of that oven, we're actually heat treating the material. So we're taking soft material and turning it into hard material because we heat it up like that, and then we quench it in oil. So we have everything like that all in-house. But in the typical process of taking chrome silicon materials, we just have to stress relieve that. We don't have to do anything in relation to actually heat treating the material. And then obviously we go through a shot peening process that's going to improve the fatigue life of the spring. We go through a presetting process to ensure that the spring won't take a set during operation and fatigue and so forth. And then of course, we have all the technology to properly inspect and evaluate the spring to ensure that you're going to get the product that you expect. And then finally, we'll finish the product and paint it in the color of your choice. Another unique aspect of CTI outside of our suspension manufacturing is also the ability for us to do low volume production in unique wire forms and shapes. So this goes beyond just typically what you might see from a standard coil spring. So we have wave spring capability, wire forms, we have stampings, but this is all kind of low volume support. So we're really an ideal candidate to help you with those kind of specialty applications. Just to give you an idea, we have the capability of making a wave spring about 36 inches in diameter. So that allows us to use exotic materials, goes into big, large applications that could be like a ball valve or anything like that, moving fluids in a power plant or moving oil through pipelines, those kind of things. So, like I said, everything's done under one roof. We cover everything, all aspects of manufacturing. The only thing we really don't do internally here as a company is do any special plating or electropolishing, those kind of things. That takes place with vendors that we have as our partners. So one of the things I wanted to touch on in this is discuss and review how we go about dealing with our customers and how they can come to us and request a custom spring. So one of the things here, obviously we talked about earlier, is this is a myriad of ways people can contact CTI and have a conversation with us and start that process. So number one, give us a call. If you want to email us, send us prints. If you want to chat with us, we have all those things in place to be able to communicate with our customers as needed. So one of the things that's ideal in working with CTI is that we can provide support. You can come to us with already existing need. If you have drawings, we can bid that for you as necessary. But really, if you'd like, leverage us, leverage our capabilities. Come to us early in your design phase. I always have that conversation with our customers, is that, hey, when you have a project, come to us early so we could help you how you would package that application. So those are some of the methodologies we follow. And I like to just highlight that if you have a keen interest in having a better understanding about how springs, especially if you're an engineer and you don't know too much about springs, but you know a lot about another application, you know, maybe it might be something like an internal combustion application, whatever, but or you're a robotics guy or what have you. But go ahead and reference SMI, which is a Spring Manufacturers Institute. They have some great literature and information on spring design. And then also there's mechanical springs by Wall. So I want to make sure I reference those, because I'll be showing you some of the information and reference material that was provided for that, utilizing those. But anyway, so we go through a whole streamline of process. We have these steps that we follow, all our tech team follows, to ensure that you're going to get the spring that you need. One of the other items that I want to stress is get to know your spring terminology, whether you're speaking with us or any other vendor in the spring space. Just have a better understanding of what a spring calls out. You know, let's say it's the wire diameter, it's the degree that the spring has to maintain, the various form of function, whatever the parallelism, all those little things is a good idea. So get your terminology straight, and it makes life easier for us who are, you know, dealing with you. So because there's many times somebody will say, hey, you know, I want a spring that's going to provide 500 pounds of force, but there's not a lot of other details. So then it's like trying to pull, you know, teeth trying to get all that information out of them. So know that in advance. It makes our job easier and make that process go a lot faster. So some of the things regarding spring terminology and understanding what a spring is. And I'm going to primarily focus on helical compression springs here in our discussions today, because that tends to be typically what ends up being in the motorsports arena. So I want to touch a little bit on theory a little bit. I don't want to get too techy in this thing, because I don't want to put people to sleep. But at the end of the day, what I found in motorsports, and certainly earlier on, maybe things are changing and people are becoming a little bit more educated, but it's about spring rate. Everybody talks about rate because a lot of the community has the opportunity to purchase springs that are already in a catalog. So let's say they're 12-inch coilover, 2.5-inch ID, 300-pound rate. And that's kind of like a system of how things are measured, which is all great and fine. But a lot of people will say, hey, you know, my spring can lose rate. Well, a spring doesn't lose rate. It's not really possible, not physically possible, but a spring will lose load. So understand that terminology, because really the only thing about spring rate is it's just a methodology to, let's say, evaluate a spring and evaluate that rate curve, what that's going to be between 2 points. So like I said in the slide, is spring rate is defined by the difference between two loads divided by the deflection between those two loads. That's all it is. So at the end of the day, if you're going to look at, you know, a spring from a suspension application, the tire is the ultimate component that is between the chassis and the ground, right? And the tire, all the tire sees is load. It could care less about rate. It understands load, and that's how you're going to optimally generate your slip angle, is the amount of load that you have there, right? So what I propose, and people should be more aware of, is how much load do I have at that deflection? And I'm seeing, when I was at the PRI show last winter in December, I saw several people more focused now on defining load and various loads throughout that deflection curve. And I think people are becoming a little bit more aware of really what a spring's function is, and that is it's an energy storage device. It stores force and provides the force. So that's something somebody should maybe dig a little bit deeper in, but understand. So here's a couple things to keep in mind. If you're coming to a spring manufacturer and say, hey, you know, I need to have a certain load on my vehicle, certain loaded height or installed height, that's great, and understand that force. And then you might say, well, I also need that force to be somewhere that's going to be, let's say, 50% higher at a certain amount of deflection. So they need that force there. So they've got two loads now, right? So you can define two loads easily on a spring and then produce it accordingly. And you kind of let that rate drift around. And let me explain. So on this spring curve, you can see that it's not truly linear. In the middle of the range, it's pretty linear. But at the very beginning and at the very end, you have what is a progression. So you have a non-linear segment in the spring curve. So what you want to be careful about is where you're measuring that spring rate. So typically for us, we recommend to our customers that between 30 and 70% is the region where you're probably going to get the most linearity in the spring. So keep that in mind. So if you want, let's say you have a very, like a perfect example would be like an Indy car, any high downforce application where you have to have very high spring rates. Well, the mass that you're putting on that spring is not very high relatively to the spring rate. So you might have an area where you're really working in this region down here, like in that 15% area. So this is pretty much in a spring fairly nonlinear. It's quite difficult to make the spring linear in that region and then linear in this region and so forth. So you have to kind of make that adjustment, say, hey, where's that thing going to work? What are the loads that I'm looking for? And then work with the spring manufacturer to identify those loads. So, and that becomes more important to you because obviously aero will vary. Obviously, the car at 200 miles an hour will generate, you know, whatever, 4 or 5 times whatever that loading is when the vehicle's at static. So those are the things that you have to identify versus saying, hey, I just need an 1,800-pound spring. So hopefully that helps people understand from a springs perspective what's really happening. Another thing I put up here is the spring rate equation. Just gives you an idea. You can play around with numbers if you want to crank some numbers out. But for instance, in this equation, G is represented by the material torsional modulus. For the material that we typically use for suspension applications, that value is going to be 11.5 million PSI. And then D is wire diameter, and that is raised to the 4th power. And then in the numerator, you have a factor, which is a standard. It's an 8. That's always there. And then the D is the mean diameter. That's the center diameter. So basically, to understand what the mean diameter is, you're taking the outer diameter minus 1 wire size. That gets you to the mean diameter, and that's cubed. And then the value for N is the number of active coils. And the typical spring that we deal with in racing applications are typically close and ground. So you'll have anywhere from 1.5, 1.6 to 2 dead coils, depending on the configuration of the spring. So those are just kind of rules of thumb. So you can play around with the spring rate equation and come up with you know, an opportunity as you're tuning your car, what have you, and decide which direction you want to go, you know. But anyway, I think hopefully that shed some light. So we'll move on to the next slide.
It absolutely shed some light, at least for me. And I know everybody out there is, you know, you come here to these seminars to learn something like you just put forth. So I appreciate that.
Okay. So I know we're starting to run a little bit short on time, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. So here's there's always the round wire versus square wire. And then I'm always want to point out that a compression spring, a helical compression spring, typically will provide the most amount of storage for a spring that has a high deflection. So these equations here give you a little rundown and opportunity to decide what's your best way to go about utilizing the right materials for your particular spring package. So you have round wire provides the highest amount of storage capacity, but for space efficiency, you might need to have square wire. And that's why a lot of times you'll see a helper spring, or what's sometimes commonly referred to as a tender spring, having a square wire or a rectangular cross section. So just kind of gives you an idea of what the difference is there. Another thing that's important is to maintain the spring index in a reasonable area. Extremely large spring indexes above 14 create fabrication problems. So stay away from that. You want to be no less than 3 typically, because then the stresses are very high, the forming stresses, and from a packaging standpoint, also from a coiling standpoint, it could be a problem. So that's where hot forming is your friend. So, hot forming and cold forming go hand in hand in various ways. We've just evolved our cold forming kind of to that next level. So that's something that's some food for thought is try to keep it in 4 to 8 for your spring index, so your corrected stresses are not too high, because stress is a key component in making sure that the spring's going to operate for whatever length of time, hopefully the life of the spring, life of the application, and so forth. Another thing, this is really a problem that we see in a lot of off-road applications where everybody has long travel suspensions. They want to have extremely long springs. Another thing that's really important here is to keep a spring from buckling. So you want to have that L over D ratio. This is the mean diameter, again, going back to that, divided and the length divided by that mean diameter. So the longer the spring, the more tendency you would have to buckle or bow. And that's something that may be a problem, especially in an application where you have a coil over shock assembly. So you don't want that shock and spring to strike each other as they're going in and moving through function. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So in this case, short and fat is okay. Then you also have options depending on the spring configuration. So you can have open ends, closed ends. It just depends on the application. In most instances, everybody sees a close and ground spring, whether it's an internal combustion high-speed valve train spring or it's a suspension application. So that's the most common. But if you need more unique packaging, you might have to have pigtail ends. And that's something that's just, having that autocoil equipment gives you that opportunity to create a spring almost in a myriad of configurations. And then, of course, there's the right-hand rule. In technical jargon, going back to, first year engineering school. But you can have left-handed wound or right-handed wound springs. Typically, the industry standard is right-hand wound. But sometimes if you have to nest a spring where you have one spring in the other, you're going to have one counter-rotating spring to the other. So in a coilover application, it really doesn't matter. But what does matter is the spring will provide some form of torque as it's being compressed. So it may matter depending on the application. It depends on the threads on your valves and your damper assembly. I mean, it's possible that when the spring does compress, it's going to provide a torque and cause some rotation. So keep that in mind on your particular application. So that's another thing to address and let people know what direction, wide direction you want your springs. We want to touch on the material again a little bit more in detail. The high tensile chrome silicon materials are what we use predominantly for suspension applications. We use alloys and materials that are globally sourced. We really focus on only premium suppliers. So we have domestic suppliers, we have suppliers from the EU, we have suppliers from Japan, and we also have suppliers from South Korea. So having that wide range of suppliers keeps us in having the best materials available for our customers. Each region has developed let's say, a material that is unique to their standards, and some of the best materials come from Japan, Korea. South Korea has some wonderful materials. So we utilize options and suppliers that can provide us the best material possible to ensure that you're going to get the most lightest available spring package based on stresses. And in some of these high tensile grade materials that are induction tempered, it's not out of the question to see material tensils as high as 300 KSI. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. A lot of times people will say, "Hey, can you make a tie spring? Can you do this?" It's like, yeah, I'll make you a tie spring, but pretty much the best tie material out there is going to hit about 180 KSI. I mean, I can make your wire diameter smaller. I can make your overall package smaller. I can get you pretty much to within probably 5 to 15% of a tie spring in mass, if you're allowed to package it accordingly. So keep that in mind. Tie still has a big role, but it's becoming less and less. 30, 40 years ago, tie had a massive role, but these things have now come together where these high tensile grade materials are providing tremendous performance. So anyway.
Amazing. Richard, we just got a couple of moments remaining in today's webinar.
Okay.
I find it like there are so many people out there that are, I got to be inspired by this. Just, it must be very cool to go to work for you every day, being able to touch all these different industries, right? And see what's going on. But let's go back to contact information. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can they find out more if they want to take this information we learned here today and advance the ball and maybe serve you guys up a couple of projects?
Sure. So let's see, that would be, there we go.
There we
go.
go.
This is our contact information. Sorry, ran over it. I didn't realize all these slides would run over that far, but got a long way today. But everybody can get us at our phone number. Everybody can get us on sales@coilingtech.com and chat with us if necessary.
Yeah, you do this all the time. You live in this world. To those of us who receive the benefits by being involved in motorsports or enjoy racing or certainly love the idea of high performance and know that the only reason it happens is because of the industry and the business to business relationships behind it, I found it very interesting. And I'm very excited for what you guys got going here right in the United States of America. Although we are a worldwide product, Houston, Texas, you guys are doing a lot of great things down there. And I was just excited to learn about it. And so thank you for your time today, Richard.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Richard. And sorry to interrupt. We have to always keep it under an hour, usually about 45 minutes. You did a brilliant job. Just think of, we should have you back. It's you have so much expertise and so much information to share. So thank you very much for joining us today. This webinar has been recorded. It will be posted later on the ePortrait platform and distributed through our newsletters and our different media, social media channels. So don't forget to check out Coiling Technologies products on the ePortrait platform. Next week webinar will be with Halo, and we will be talking brake fluid. So for more updates and resources, please visit www.eportrait.com. Once again, thank you and goodbye. See you next week.
Bye now.
ePortrait is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
ePortrait, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
ePart Trade really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck. Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
Where will you find Ferrea racing components? Circle track, drag racing, and any top race shop. In every form of motorsports competition, our valves and valve train components deliver race-proven design and technology. And we've brought that same performance to our street applications as well. We're backed by 5 decades of experience, an extensive range of off-the-shelf components, and our custom valve department has the fastest turnaround times in the industry. Ferrea Racing Components. Stand with us or race against us.